There's a lot of talk in this time right now, and I'm talking about 2020, being in the 2020s, if I can say that, about creativity, because it's very, very clear that the economy has shifted. Certainly, if I look at my own lifetime, I was born in the 1940s. Actually, before television was a big thing. Television existed, but it wasn't national television. And before many other things have been created technologically over the last 50 or 60 years. And I think that when I was born, it was very much of a large organization world. It was very, very much of big factories, big office buildings, big government. And I would say that what has happened, without a lot of people really being all that aware of what a big difference it makes, is that things have gotten smaller. All the emphasis in microtechnology is packing as much information as possible on very, very small microchips. And, cameras used to be much bigger, and cameras now as big as some portion of your cell phone. And, it's just that things have gotten very, very much smaller. But one of the things that has gotten smaller is organizations. And there was an interesting statistic that the Department of Labor in the United States, they just take all the number of incorporated businesses, and they do this with with government businesses, and they do this with charitable or non-private organizations, charitable organizations. And they just divide it by the number of people on payroll. So many people on payroll in the United States, and they divide that into they divide the number of organizations into the payroll. And around the year 2000, the average number of people in the organization was 24. And in 2015, 15 years later, the average number of people in an organization was 12. And that's really quite remarkable. I mean, you're taking a lot of those businesses are just a single individual. Some of them are 10,000 people, but when you add it up, the average size organization is about 12 people. And it's probably even less now as we move into the 2020s. And what it tells me is that because of technology, you can get a greater multiplier out of an organization with a smaller number of people. Okay. And I think that's just a general trend in the world. And that I would say that the jobs that went missing from when it was 24 to when it was 12 people were people who could be replaced by a machine. And who can be replaced by a machine is someone who's not creative, someone who doesn't add anything new, someone who doesn't make things faster, someone who doesn't make things easier, someone who doesn't make. They just do what a machine can do. Okay. So it's repetitive activities that get replaced by machinery. It's not innovative activities. Okay. So I think what this has done is put more and more pressure on people, showing that they can be more useful than what a repetitive machine can do. Okay, so that's you're not in competition with other people anymore. You're in competition with a machine who can do the repetitive stuff a lot better than you can. They don't get tired out. They don't get bored. They don't take coffee breaks. They don't need the night off. They don't need the weekend off. They don't need to take vacation. They can just do it every day. And since enjoyment is not part of what makes a good machine, it's not a factor. But for you, the work has to be enjoyable. So the other aspect of it is that a lot of people, knowing that repetitive work, first of all, isn't pleasant, and that it's going to get eliminated, are striving to become more creative. So that brings up the question, how do you become more creative? Well, I would say this, that it isn't about you, it's about your relationships with other people. So creativity by yourself doesn't really mean anything, okay? Because it's got to be useful creativity. There are a lot of people who think they're creative and they produce works of art or they produce novels, but nobody wants to read them. Nobody thinks that what they're doing is any useful. So being creative in yourself doesn't really make that much difference. The question is what you're creating useful to other people? So I would say that the start of creativity is not in you trying to be creative. It starts in you being more cooperative and being more useful to other people. And then once you've done something with another person, if you would just review it and say what really worked about that and what didn't really work about that. And if you do it together, then you both said, well, this really worked and this really worked, but I don't think this worked. I don't think this worked. And then you say, well, the next time we do this or something like it, how can we do this faster, easier? How can, we use it becomes cheaper because we're more productive, and how does it produce a bigger result? And that's where creativity starts. Creativity is not an individual activity. Creativity is a team activity, and it's finding people you love to work with and constantly improve how you work together, and that's the start of all creativity.